What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. It is time for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. I'm your host, TJ Zwarych, and we have finally concluded our Gen V journey. We've broken down every episode of the season so far, and we have now reached the Season 2 finale. Helping me break it down a few times throughout this season, and now back for the finale, we got my fellow Agents of Fandom member, Jam. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, bro. Great to be back and talk about this finale.
Looking forward to diving into it with you. And joining us we got two first-time guests on the podcast. So it is a very, very exciting day because I've been, trying to plan with both of these people for a couple weeks now. And finally, we're able to make it happen for the finale. First up from Pop News, Josh Martin Jones. How you doing, Josh?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Very excited to have you on. Love what you're doing right now over with Pop's News. And so we'll definitely give a chance to shed some light on that later, but I can't wait to hear your thoughts on Gen V as well. And joining us from thedirect.com and also co-host of the Controller Club podcast, which if you didn't know already, you can find me on the most recent episode talking about Pokemon Legends ZA. We got Lauren Rouse. How you doing, Lauren?
Hello. I'm so glad to be here. We finally made it happen, and in the same week that you were on my podcast, so it feels like a fair trade.
It does, and hopefully we can make it happen both ways more often here going in the future. We tried to make it happen for Peacemaker, and then we couldn't make the scheduling line up, and then we kind of realized on Controller Club Day, hey, wait a minute, you watched Gen V too. We got one more chance. We can make it happen. And so I'm looking forward to diving into it with you. Before we start, I always do like asking everybody here on the podcast, what you watching? And so we've kind of extended that as well into what you're reading, what you've been playing. And so, music, movies, TV, video games, comic books, novels, whatever you like. How have you been passing your time, Jam? What you've been watching?
What's crazy is when I started doing my podcast, I always shouted you before I was with Agents of Fandom. I always would shout out, hey, my friends over at Agents of Fandom do this category that is called What You Watching. But I'm such a nerd that I do a bunch of different things, as we do. And so I kind of added what you're nerding out to. So you could take that here. What is everybody nerding out to? You know what I mean? But for me, it's been the same, brother. Ghost of Yotei. A lot of Ghost of Yotei. I've been streaming it now. I want to say every chance I get, which will probably be again tonight. As far as TV shows besides Gen V, I'm starting the on Netflix, the Splinter Cell animated series. And you know me, anime, My Hero Academia, Spy Family, anything anime right now is like my go-to. But I'm trying to get closer to my list of movies. You're gonna be upset with me, brother. I haven't been to the movies, and I think since September, like early September. So I've missed a lot of the movies that are heavy on the list, as well as some great Emmy-nominated shows like The Pit. So that's all I'm trying to get to right now. But meanwhile, it's been Ghost of Yotei and some anime.
Yeah, my movie watching, I was on this great quest. I was watching like one new great movie every day, and it was going really well for about 2 months. And now since I've been starting to play some new video games, it has just fallen right off. I went just grinding through Ghost of Yotei, didn't want to put that down, and so I played through that basically to full completion as quick as I could. And now I'm playing Pokemon Legends ZA. The only movies that I've been watching are like I'm in this fantasy football show every Wednesday night, and we have a little competition between us every week, and the winner picks a movie for us to all watch, and we review it at the end of the football podcast. And just as like penance, essentially, the one guy has, because we never beat him, he's just been winning every single week, won 6 straight weeks to start the season. We just was like, until someone beats him, he was only choosing Liam Neeson movies. And he's been going out of his way to just choose like bad ones. So we watched Ice Road Vengeance. It was terrible. No Ice Roads, no Vengeance. We watched what was the next one? Battleship. based on like the literal board game. It was so bad. Watched the A-Team last night. Better than the other two. Not great. Better than the other two. Josh, how about you? What you been watching?
I've dived into the Traitors recently. I know there's like US versions. I think we've had 3 sort of civilian series here in the UK, where obviously they'll just pull your sort of average Joes from all walks of life. But we finally got our first celebrity format of the show. So it's been really exciting watching it for the first time, because I never really took an interest with the show. Everyone sort of was raving about it, and it felt like a real it felt like TV was event TV again in the UK. So I think we're 4 episodes into the new season. There's a new episode today that I need to catch up on, but it's just very fun. I think it's a lot different when you have celebrities who clearly, some of them have previous relationships, so throwing them into the game as sort of complex and competitive as the Traitors is both entertaining, not just because of the sort of the scheming and the murdering going on, but the actual comedy as well. There's a lot of big characters in that castle. So that's been the main thing. Games wise, I'm a soccer fan. So FC 26 just on lock at the minute still, until I get bored of it.
Heck yeah, Lauren, how about you? What you been watching? And as a host of a video game podcast, I of course want to know what you've been playing as well.
Yeah, I am kind of just like a one TV show at a time person, so it really has just been keeping up with Gen V for me lately. So that kind of covers the watching portion. But in terms of playing, I really am juggling a lot right now. October has been a crazy season for video games. So I have, like you guys, been playing Ghost of Yotei. I've been playing Pokemon Legends, and I've also been playing Hades 2, which I've talked about at length on Controller Club, but it is like just such a fantastic game. It's a sequel to the first Hades game, which was like a kind of a sleeper hit. It's like a roguelike set in Greek mythology, and it's just fantastic. And the second game is just somehow even better. So yeah, that's one of those games where it's like, I'll just do one run before bed, and then the next thing I know, it's been like 2 hours, and I'm like, okay, that was like 2 hours that I like gone in a second. So that's been taking up all my time at this point.
Yeah, it's something I'm excited to dive into. I wasn't familiar with the franchise, but I love Greek mythology. And then after listening to a ton of Controller Club, that has made me want to bump that game way up on my list for as soon as I am finished Pokemon Legends ZA. So go check out, if you're a fan of video games, check out the Controller Club podcast. I feel like getting close to like the somewhat end of Pokemon Legends ZA. And, you know, kind of we've talked about my full thoughts on here on the Agents Fandom podcast over on Controller Club, so I won't go too deep into it. But honestly, as I keep going further and further in, no new thoughts really. It's one of those things where it's like there's so many things I wish I could change about it, and at the same time I can't put it down. And so it's one of those things where it's like I wish it was a little bit better, but it's still so addicting. It still has so many of the most fun aspects of Pokemon with some new elements that are just absolutely incredible, specifically the battle elements. You want to know all about them, check over on the Agents Fandom pod, check out the Controller Club pod. And I have one more thing that I haven't watched yet, but I'm excited to watch, and that's Star Wars Visions. The screeners arrived in my inbox this morning. We're going to be talking about that. It arrives on Disney Plus October 30th. So next week we will be talking some Star Wars Visions, and we do have a few exciting things lined up over the next few months. It's quiet from a TV standpoint the next few months. Like, it's not a whole lot going on. We're going to be talking about Visions here at the end of October. We're going to dive into season 4 of The Witcher here on the podcast. Jam and I were talking, we're going to do a little something for that. Haven't covered The Witcher here on the show before, but it's an exciting new season with Liam Hemsworth taking over. Just like, feel like there's going to be a lot of buzz. And then I'm also, the video game, The Witcher 3 is one of my favorite, if not my favorite video game of all time. And I can't wait for that 4th one to come out. So we're going to have to dive into The Witcher. I see our friend Matt Aguilar hanging out in chat, excited about The Witcher. Matt, if you're going to be watching this new season, we're going to have to be getting you on the podcast here as well. And then after that, going to talk some Stranger Things here on the pod. I'm not as much of like a Stranger Things mega fan as many, but I threw it in a group chat, and again, seems like we had some interest, so I'll throw on some Stranger Things here on the podcast end of November. And then speaking of Greek mythology, Percy Jackson and the Olympians coming into the end of December. And then 2026 is when things really heat up from a Marvel and DC standpoint. And we'll, of course, start things off with some Wonder Man movies in the meantime. Well, I won't be there because I couldn't care less about these movies. But Avatar, Fire and Ash, we'll have a podcast for it. Don't you worry, everybody. We're going to cover it. But we'll have some Avatar, Fire and Ash, and then maybe some The Running Man as well, because that's one that I am looking forward to seeing in theaters. Wicked for Good, another one I'm looking forward to seeing in theaters. So we might have to pull up some shows for that one. And so stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed to the Agents Fandom podcast on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, wherever you get your pods. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. Follow us on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. And head over to agentsoffandom.com for the latest in news and reviews. We do just have an exciting one that dropped this morning. Sean Mott, Metalcore Nerds, you know him here. He's always on the podcast. He just had a review drop this morning for It, Welcome to Derry, the new series that is coming to Crave here in Canada, HBO Max in the States. Josh, what do you want? What HBO shows come on in the UK? What's the streaming service you go to for that?
They come here to Sky or Now. So now it's basically owned by the same corporation, but mainly Sky. But I think we're getting HBO Max next year. I could be wrong. I think finally we will have HBO Max here after what has felt like a lifetime.
Shout out to Crave here in Canada. They get the job done. All the HBO stuff go over there, and it actually they connected it to Prime recently, so it's like Prime is like 4 streaming services in one in Canada. Like all my stuff basically just goes through Amazon Prime. It's Prime, Disney Plus, and Netflix. Those are the 3 that kind of get rotated here. But pivoting over to, actually, before we talk about Gen V, I forgot that I put this in the rundown. And so I don't actually know what everyone on here on the podcast varying levels of Star Wars fandom are. So you feel free to just pass if you want to. But I want to briefly touch on, and like maybe we'll have a whole podcast about this Friday. I'm not sure. I haven't looked ahead that far in the week yet. But Adam Driver in an interview with AP just had like a wild bomb that he dropped in a recent interview for Star Wars fans. And that was that he was developing a movie alongside Steven Soderbergh, who, if you don't know, is the director of the Ocean's trilogies. Ocean's 11 is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's in my Letterboxd top 4. Absolutely adore that movie. Steven Soderbergh and Adam Driver were developing a movie called The Hunt for Ben Solo, which would find Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, still alive, and we don't know the full scope of what the plot would be, but it would have had him on a journey, fulfilling his journey of redemption, really coming back to the light, not as Kylo Ren, but as Ben Solo. They pitched it to Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm was like, hell yeah, let's do it. Dave Filoni, Kathleen Kennedy were both so in. They bring it to Disney. They bring it to Bob Iger, and he was like, nah, Ben Solo's dead, man. Ben Solo's dead. We're not doing that. We're not bringing him back, which is so ironic given what they did with the Rise of Skywalker and Palpatine. But Jam, I'll throw it to you first. I honestly am not even. I am, from what has been announced from Star Wars in the future, a Mando and Grogu movie, Filoni-verse, Heir to the Empire connected movie, a First Jedi movie, another Rey movie, all of that. I like the things that have been announced. So it's not like I'm like, what are they doing? I hate this new direction. Nothing like that, because I like the new direction. But when you get a super talented actor who loves a character in your universe, and a super talented director, and they have a script already done and they want to make it, I feel like you just do it. What are your thoughts, Jan?
I 100% agree. I mean, it's Adam Driver, and it's like, come on, man. Like, and I had to use the meme in the chat, but somehow Palpatine returned. Like, it doesn't make sense to. It just doesn't. I got to do the 6-7 meme too. Like, I don't get the math there. I just really don't understand it. As a Star Wars fan, I'm with you. Everything that they have, coming out or have announced, I'm on board. I actually had a road trip with my boss yesterday. We had to drive like 2.5 hours, and I found out he's a huge Star Wars fan. So we had a whole conversation about this topic. And what's crazy to me is you have like the franchise kind of the Rise of the Skywalker was supposed to be the end of the Skywalker saga, right? That's what they were like announcing. But when you have everything that we currently have, besides Visions, of course, is like tying up the loose ends to these characters that we know and love, that their stories we know and love, like Ahsoka or the Rebels, which is some of my favorite characters. All of this is now coming to fruition in a Thrawn type thing that we all can, I guess, theorize, right? Mando and Grogu. So I don't really know with the next saga being Rey, or with Starfighter also coming from Sean Levy. I don't really know why they wouldn't essentially try to close off that chapter with Ben Solo, or even set up another chapter with Ben Solo, when the fans of anything, the sequel trilogy, Kylo Ren is like the main standout from the sequel trilogy, right? Of course, you have John Boyega as Finn as well, but I really don't understand what Bob Iger and the CEO at that time. I think it was just Bob Iger. They said, so I don't really know what that thought process was. In he's dead, we don't see a way to, because that's the whole thing of Star Wars. Darth Maul has came back. I mean, so many characters, if they're not really dead, they can come back. So that's kind of been my whole thought process this whole time. Is just I'm very disappointed because I love Kylo Ren, as I'm sure anybody who likes this has any investment in the sequel trilogies does. So it's just a little disappointing as a fan.
Yeah, they could have done Force magic. They could have done War Between Worlds. Like, there's so many of these different things like that. You could have figured out the why. I'm sure the why was included in the script, or the how. Sorry, not the why. The how. It feels kind of crazy. They didn't green light this one. Lauren, what did you think?
Yeah, first off, I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I was quite invested in this news, and I agree with you guys from the studio. That was a little bit of like hand waving, and Palpatine is back. You kind of think that you could do the same for pretty much any character, and even if it wasn't like a sequel after Ben Solo's death, like just even seeing some of the lead up to him, how he became Kylo Ren, like that, like the Knights of Ren, that whole section of like the Star Wars lore is so unexplored, on screen at least, and I feel like there are lots of fans who would be so invested.
Feel terrible about the Acolyte again. Give me more seasons of the Acolyte. Oh,
This is what I mean, right? So, and even that, like Adam Driver, he doesn't age. Like he could easily go back and play a younger Ben Solo. So I just think like them passing on the opportunity to do any kind of movie with him was like a real miss.
couldn't agree more. Josh, are you a Star Wars fan yourself? What are your thoughts on this matter?
I am. Again, just like you're very disappointed that there's nothing being sort of done with this script, this pitch. I think, as excited as I am for the various Star Wars projects we've mentioned, obviously I'm a big devotee Grogu fan. I don't know if you can see him sort of stood behind me. As excited for a Mandalorian and Grogu film I would really like an actual vision for a connected storyline, again akin to a actual chapter of a saga. Whilst we are getting very different stories being told, and obviously Simon Kinberg's meant to be doing a trilogy as well, my recent confidence in Lucasfilm is struggling to understand why they've had such a strong concept for a film when we know in the past few years they've had a number of projects sort of swept under the carpet or like sort of quietly cancelled. Rogue Squadron comes to mind. Why are they not chucking money at something that arguably could do very well commercially? For a CEO like Bob Iger, who is Mr. Reboot, sequel, and you name it, sort of cash grab CEO, why are you not returning to the child of Vader, essentially? Because that would just be obviously I think it would be a box office success, I think. So I don't know why they've not continued with it. And like we said, Force Magic, Palpatine proves that anyone can come back. And if Adam Driver is wanting to come back, that says it all, I think. He clearly loves the role. So just let's do it. Do you know what I mean? I'm all in. I'm all in for the hunt for Ben Solo.
It's kind of one of those things where you have a character that when you have a character people gravitate to, people ask Chris Evans all the time, what would it take for you to come back as Captain America? And he says, I don't really want to. I like how the story concluded. It would take a script. It would take a script that there was a story to tell that I really wanted to tell. And if that were to happen, sure. So when an actor finds a script and a director, and they're like, there's a clear vision, this is what we want to do, this is the story we want to tell, you just say, thank you for doing my job for me. And you say yes, and you green light. Like, it kind of, I'm not an executive, but from the outside looking in, it feels that easy. But from one universe with crazy powers to another, I've been talking about how much I've loved with season 2 of Gen V all season, that the connectivity has been a positive for me. It very much is a season 4.5 of The Boys with the Gen V characters. And for me, that's a plus, because whether we're talking about Marvel stuff, we're talking about Star Wars stuff, I've always loved the connectivity there, and I kind of feel like I'm missing it a little bit lately. Like, whether we should have taken it back to the MCU, we should have got a Avengers or a Young Avengers movie before Doomsday, some kind of team up, bringing everybody back together here, just to remind everybody, hey, this is a shared universe, as opposed to trying to eliminate the amount of homework, get people excited about the homework, I feel like is the play from my perspective. And in Gen V, it's hitting those beats for me. Lauren, I will throw it to you first. Spoiler-free, season 2 of Gen V. It's all out now as a whole. What did you think?
Yeah, I think it felt actually like a very different season to season 1. Like, we really did kind of leave the framework of, like, these are kids at college doing classes for their superpowers. They're trying to rise up the leaderboard. That kind of setting really felt like it was in the background in this season. And it was very much like, we're dealing with a larger overall plot that's going on that is tying to this, into the world of The Boys a little bit more. And yeah, it kind of broke out of that, I guess, coming of age, we're at college kind of setting, which I kind of both like and dislike, because I was really drawn into that setting in season 1, and I love those kinds of stories, and I was excited about it. Like, I guess, like, almost like a revert back to the classic sort of teen dramas in The Boys world, but as it's evolved, it has really become just like a big setup for season 5 of The Boys, and continuing on the plot from season 4 and season 1 of Gen V. So I think that's been a good thing. Definitely, it does make The Boys season 5 feel like it's going to be this huge culmination of something. But I'm also sitting here being like, I don't see how any show can continue beyond whatever happens in season 5 of The Boys. Like, I don't know how a season 3 of this show would work, depending on what happens in the finale of that. So that was kind of my main concern coming out of this season and this finale in particular. But on the whole, it does feel like, yeah, it's a great side piece to that world of The Boys. It does give you, like, scratch that itch that you've been missing perhaps with the gory, like, satirical take on superheroes. So I do like that. But I am just sort of wondering where we're going here after this.
I agree, and I do have some potential pitches I want to throw everyone's way when we kind of get into theory mode a little bit as to how they could potentially continue telling stories in this universe. in the post Homelander era. But Josh, before we get to that, give me your thoughts, spoiler free, on season 2 as a whole.
Any TV series that introduces Hamish Linklater is immediately watchable. Even before he was like attached to Stars, very excited. I think they had a lot this season, obviously with the death of Chance Perdomo. Regardless of what people will say about using this as a sort of stepping stone for The Boys season 5, I actually quite much preferred how season 2 worked as a whole. The sort of, like we said, the everyday college learning about the superpowers, whilst it was an interesting take for this universe, I think really sort of evolving it into The Boys 4.5, should I say, has given the show new feet to stand on. We have had a lot more time with these characters as they're sort of realizing the bigger picture after they left in the woods at the end of season 1. And I just think they've all really sort of evolved as a team, which I think is really important going into the final season of The Boys, which still, based on the ending of this and the ending of The Boys season 4, there's so much that they can do, and it's for a culture of sort of superhero universes where we sort of hear tidbits and we assume what's going to happen. It's so refreshing watching a TV series that we have no clue what's going to happen in The Boys season 5, which it's incredibly exciting, especially with how the finale of the Gen V season 2 goes as well. So it's what better time to watch The Boys, I would say.
We're all from the woods, if you think about it. Check out Chad Powers on Hulu and Disney Plus internationally if you haven't yet. It's a frustratingly short season of television, but it has some hilarious jokes in it alongside of it. I was just thinking about this while Josh and Lauren, you were both talking, that I kind of feel like Gen V really could have used like this as a third season. It kind of felt like the first season was like an introduction to college life, and there was this overarching story that connected to the Boys universe, but it was equally important kind of having that teen drama, like you said, Lauren, of like these are college kids. This very much felt like we're done with college. We are graduating to the real world. We are ready to take on the big fight. I feel like if Gen V started at season 2 of The Boys instead of season 3, kind of in line with, and we got one more season in the middle of just these kids being college kids before this one, it probably would have enhanced what we got in this season even more if we had a little bit more time with them in that college life. And that wasn't something I could kind of previously considered, because I do love this season. I think it would have been an even better season 3 than season 2, though. Jam, what were your thoughts on this season?
It's interesting to me that when a lot of people on the interwebs always talk about superhero fatigue, I don't ever see it coming around when it's The Boys and Gen V. I feel like that is very much a franchise that it's so different and unique that it just grabs people no matter whatever type of superhero content you're into, unless obviously it's not obviously not catered for kids. But I think if you like superhero stuff, it interests you. And so watching this season, Lauren, you brought up a really great point. You know how it was different from them in season 1 being kids in college and things like that. And I didn't even think about that watching this season until you guys just mentioned it. And it kind of puts things into a whole perspective for me because Josh, you kind of mentioned this. For me, I felt like it was always leading up to that. Even when I think about what's to come with the future of the Boys universe, I think they have the Boys Mexico is on the list. The next thing.
There's like Vought. Oh, what was it called? Vought Rising, I think, is one where it's the prequel with that is the beginnings of Vought, and then the Boys Mexico, which is in development but hasn't started like any type of production or anything. I feel like I remember just seeing. Apologies, I don't remember where it was from, but an article about Diego Luna was like, "We're ready, but it hasn't gotten the go ahead yet."
Got it. Okay. But with to y'all's point, with this being like The Boys 4.5, that's kind of how I looked at it the whole time. I kind of looked at the series as a whole, like just a segment of The Boys to hold us over until the bigger picture, overall picture was to come about. Now, when I got to season one, TJ, I mentioned this to you before. I felt like, and I still kind of feel like this, Gen V as a whole is up there along some of the best superhero shows for me, amongst the Lokis, the WandaVisions, like just the nuances they do with like transgender, racism. Like there's so many things that they touch on for kids at this, like teens or college students, but there's so many things that they touch on that makes people feel represented. And so that's the first thing. Second thing is I've never felt like from a superhero standpoint when it comes to spin-off or TV shows where they do spin-offs where they have a complete story like that also fits the overall bigger picture of the universe. When I think about TV shows like that, I always think of like the CW. And fun fact, I love the CW stuff, I'm not gonna lie. But that's what I think about. So, the Netflix stuff, Disney Plus, DC's now coming. I look at The Boys as so concise that they have a beginning, a middle, and we're gonna get the end. And so for me, Gen V, both season 1 and 2 has somebody. Carlos mentioned Penguin. That's a really good shout out there as well. But for me, Gen V this season knocked it out the park. Easily an 8.5 out of 8.5, 9 out of 10 for me.
All right, before we start talking spoilers for the episode, it is time for the retro recap. And I'm going back to an old favorite, the very first one. We're going back to the Legend of Korra style Shiro Shinobi 1920s recap for it. If you haven't been here before us for a retro recap, welcome. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it because it feels like hasn't been a much in between so far. But alas, we'll dive into it. Thomas Godolkin lives after the 100-year-old Nazi Charles Xavier indulges in his rejuvenated body. He sets off to cull the herd of soups so that only the strong survive. Can Marie Moreau and her team of Guardians prevail against the torturous, telepathic tyrant? Find out on the Agents of Fandom podcast. All right, let's dive into full spoilers. The episode starts off with the Thomas Godolkin flashback. He has something called V1 in him. It's the same thing as Firestorm, or is that the gun lady? What was the Nazi lady from the beginning? Stormfront. Thank you. I knew it involved a storm. Same kind of V as she had. It allows them to not age. They have essential near immortality from an aging standpoint unless somebody just takes them right out. But as we can see throughout the series, even when you are burned to shit, this V can help you stay alive. But we also find out right off the bat he is not strong enough to control Marie at his current state. Jam, what are your thoughts on Godolkin as a villain as a whole? Because we don't actually... Hamish Linklater is so great as Cypher throughout the series. We don't actually see much of Godolkin himself until the finale.
Our last episode, I was telling you, I was like, I think that's how this episode is going to start with like a little quick flashback of Godolkin, or he's going to be on the campus culling the herd. But I do wish we would have gotten a little bit more in that flashback. I think, or throughout the episode. I think for me, I wanted to see who the first person Godolkin took over. Then I wanted to see how was the guy's name Doug? Cypher's character? Was he the real human? His name was Doug, right? I wanted to see how he also got Doug. I think little connections like that would have made me maybe appreciate or hate Godolkin, whatever feeling I wanted to feel towards Godolkin, it would have made me feel that more if we would have gotten a little bit more of him. As a villain overall, though, I think he got the job done. He did what he set out to do, or the task of the antagonist was set out and it was done. He got the power up for Marie, she powered up, she got the level up. So I think overall he was good. I don't know if I would say he's like the best villain I've ever seen. He was solid. Overall he was solid.
Josh, how about you? You brought up about how much you were enjoying Hamish Linklater's performance. What did you think of the pivot to Cypher and his story? Sorry, the pivot to Godolkin and his story.
I think it could have happened a little bit sooner. I am sort of hoping. Obviously, we know that Soldier Boy and Stormfront are back in that sort of spin-off prequel, whatever you call it. I'd love to know if Ethan Slater might pop up there potentially. I don't know if they're going to keep that sort of hush hush, with the sort of the continuity with V1. But yeah, I think for an actor who's still quite early in his game as Ethan Slater, I think the performance he has in this episode is really good, which is very unfortunate that we only have it for one episode. We are sort of teased about Godolkin throughout the season, and as much as I love Hamish, I think, like you said, I would have loved a little bit more time with Slater as Godolkin. Maybe just seeing a little bit more about the mentality of this character. Why is he the way he is? You know, what led him down this path, and really sort of showing the true nature. Obviously, we saw a lot of it through Cypher, but it would have been interesting to see Slater's take on it. But yeah.
This is something I'm kind of torn on because like I actually want to just like pivot and talk about his death as well. And so Lauren, I'll throw it to you for your thoughts on him, but also the decision to kill him off at the end of the episode. Because on one hand, this is a character that I would have really liked to see interact with Homelander next season in a final season of The Boys. I think they're two very different types of evil and their philosophies kind of contradict each other. And so it would have been really cool to see how they could cross paths with each other. On the other hand, I think it did a really good job of closing off the season 2 arc for the entire squad of characters. And since they were doing so much setting up for The Boys' final season, from a storytelling standpoint, it felt like a good job of closing the loop a little bit. What were your thoughts on Godolkin as a character and then the decision to kill him off, Lauren?
Yeah, I think I pretty much echo a lot of what you guys have said, which is that it did feel like the switch to the new actor Ethan Slater was quite last minute. And I think even like you were saying, Jam, like having a little bit of a flashback with seeing a bit more of Godolkin's time possessing other people might have like helped build that connective tissue between the switch between two actors. Because I do think that like Linklater and Slater did a good job of playing the same character, but I think Ethan Slater's version was just even more like I guess like psycho in some regards. So it did feel like a significant step up. I know he was kind of being undercover when he was being played, like when he was Cypher, but you know, you have Thomas Godolkin here. Like he is the founder of this university that is so much like potential there for a character. Like I really did feel like he's going to be the big bad of whatever future seasons we have of Gen V. Like he is going to play a part. I thought they really were setting him up to be a part of The Boys season 5 because like you say, he was sort of one of those major heroes that took the V1, and maybe he'll have like maybe he can play a role in standing up to Homelander or allying with him. That would be a really interesting dynamic. So when he was killed off, I kind of found it really anticlimactic, particularly the way it was done. I like it was a gruesome death for sure, but I was sort of like, we've seen this before. We've seen plenty of heads explode on The Boys. So when he was kind of just taken out so swiftly, I was like, oh, I really felt like there was more that they were going to do with him, particularly with the lead up to that big reveal last week. So it was a little bit anticlimactic, I have to be honest.
Josh, what are your thoughts on the decision? Because I'm kind of feel like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man stopping the train, just being like, I'm pulled from both sides. Because on one hand, I couldn't agree more. It felt anticlimactic. It felt like such a cool character that had more to be explored. And on the other hand, it felt like the conclusion to Marie Moreau is her now. Like she is her. She is that soup. And it kind of felt like the conclusion to that. What were your thoughts on the decision?
I think if we had Godolkin, and like this is from like a sort of story angle, going into The Boys season 5, if we are to see it as this sort of closing of the main chapter of this universe, I fear we have so many characters at play for what is possibly an 8-episode season. Your core sort of three, your main three, for that conflict, I think is obviously Homelander, Soldier Boy, and then Butcher. I think adding any new sort of party to that triple threat could really sort of dampen the climax of that season. I think it was the right decision to kill him off. Whilst I think again, if Godolkin had appeared a little bit sooner and we had a bit more conflict, maybe that first confrontation where they lose and they have to regroup as a team, really solidifying our sort of rebellion, our team together. I think that would have worked a lot better to make that head pop feel less silly than what it was. But I think at the end of the day, it was the right call to get rid of him for Marie's sort of story, like you were saying, TJ. Because if he was in that final season, there would have been too many cooks in the kitchen, I think, unfortunately, as crazy as it would have been. Because obviously the intentions of Godolkin, as he was saying, I think sort of halfway through this episode, is he wants to control both Marie and Homelander. So it would have been interesting to see, but I'm not too disheartened that we won't be seeing Ethan Slater, touch wood, in that final season. I mean, if they can bring back Palpatine, we might have Godolkin next year. We do not know. We really do not know with these universes. So
I can't remember which one of you brought it up. I think it was either Lauren or Jam, but I do actually think, now that I think about it more, that we will see Ethan Slater in Vought Rising, assuming that show comes to be. Assuming that prequel comes to be, I actually do think that's a character that we're going to see back in this universe. Jam, what do you think of the decision to kill him off? And then lead me into kind of the pacing and the action of this episode, because like I had a lot of stuff when I was making this rundown, like Marie heals Kate, Godolkin starts killing people in the seminar, but there's not really that much stuff we got to stop and talk about, because it really just is like it's go, start to finish in this episode.
Yeah, Josh actually was the one that brought it up, Vault Rising. And the reason I love like
Lauren or Jam, it was definitely Lauren or Jam. It was Josh.
Which the reason I bring that up is because I love conversations like this. When you watch something, you have your own interpretation, right? But then listening to both Josh, Lauren, yourself, I start to think my own, like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So, Josh, you brought up a really good point with him potentially being in Vault Rising. I kind of think about it now, like, okay, yeah, I do feel like this is because I was on like the TJ thing, the Spider-Man meme. I'm being pulled in both directions. And I do feel like now this was a good conclusion to, the character, Cypher or Godolkin, but also to TJ's point, like Marie and the gang's story. But on the flip side, I do feel like what Lauren is saying, maybe it was just the way they killed him, because it did feel anticlimactic. It felt like, and this is maybe me saying this as a little bit biased, but I kind of didn't want Marie to kill him. I kind of wanted her to stay as like a hero in my mind. I'm not saying she isn't, but I kind of wanted Polarity to get his get back for his son almost. And that's kind of what I felt like should have been the moment right there was, you know what, Marie, I got this. Or no, like, don't, like, you stay kind of, again, she's not pure hero, but in that realm of no vengeance or revenge to get back. Now, on the flip side of that too, I mean, he did kill her sister. So it's like a lot of like pulling, you can go in different ways, but I'm more leaning towards what Lauren said personally. I feel like we could have seen him die differently. Maybe even Sister Sage killing him, because she was in love with him, and that whole like side bit, which we could kind of dive into now, like a little bit with the pacing that you have here with our synopsis. I mean, let me pull it up here, but the Godolkin going public, right? Like that was like the whole thing. He went public, and that wasn't a part of her plan. And so I'm very interested, and I wanted to ask you guys, because that was something that I thought about. What was her original plan? Because to me, it felt like her only plan, she had no clue that Godolkin wanted to control Homelander. Like, she was blindsided by that. She was surprised by that. So the interpretation I got felt like her plan was she's in love with this man. And this is the first time she doesn't have to lobotomize herself to have sex with somebody. You know what I mean? Like, because everybody else is stupid to her. So it felt like to me, she found a partner, and I want to I want to create the world in our image, like in our, and it felt like she was obviously blindsided by that. So I wanted to know what you guys thought. What was her even original plan? I have no clue. TJ, I ask you, throw it right back over to you.
Lauren, I'll pop it to you because it looked like you had a thought.
Well, I was going to say I was a little conflicted about Sage just in this entire, at these last few episodes at least, because her power is being super intelligent. She has the grand master plan that led Homelander to his success and things like that. So for her to not see it coming, that Godolkin would want to go behind her back and maybe control Marie and Homelander, and that was his plan, was kind of surprising to me. I could kind of buy the idea that maybe she was a little bit blinded by her love for him or something like that, but I was a little disappointed that she didn't really see it coming, and him being killed off is one of those things where it's like I feel like I've got all these unanswered questions, which is like, what was the plan? Was it just for them to join the Seven together and rule the world, and that was it? Because his idea of wanting to cull the herd and have like ultimate superhero evolution seems like maybe something that somebody with that intelligence like she has could be swayed towards. So for her to not see it coming, I was a little bit surprised.
One part that it took me like a while to stew on it before I kind of came to the conclusion, but an aspect of Sage's role in this season that I like is I don't know what her plan is either. I assume that's by design because we are going to be finding out in The Boys season 5. Like that, her plan is still going to be going forward now without Godolkin in my mind, because I think writing a super genius is the most difficult character to write because we're not the people writing as they're genius writers, but it's hard to write. How do you write the smartest person on earth when you're not the smartest person on earth? And so I do think it's interesting when you see like what's Lex Luthor's the smartest man on earth, but he is jealous of Superman, so that can be his downfall because of that sense of predictability that comes with that. I think Sister Sage's weakness is her search for an equal. She's lonely. Above all else, she is lonely, and she wants someone on her level to talk to. And what I find interesting about her character is that, like, it caught her off guard because of the human emotions stepped in front of like the computer brain. She still had an immediate backup plan. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's two ways to write a super genius, where you can write it like a Star Wars Rebels Grand Admiral Thrawn, where the audience isn't introduced to his full plan until after the fact. And so after you are seeing all these pieces of his plan come together, and it goes, oh, he wanted to lose this battle because it's going to help him win the war. Whereas Sister Sage, it's not that style of storytelling, but it's more, yeah, you can get the one up on me, but I knew that this could happen. This was a possibility that I thought of, and therefore I already have my contingency in place, releasing polarity and having him go and take out Godolkin so that Marie could blow his head off, that kind of thing. Josh, what did you think about Sister Sage's role in this episode, her plan, and kind of how that writing process came to be of, oh no, the Nazi turned on me. Well, duh.
It's less more about the sort of, I wouldn't say predictability. I feel like she's very easy to write. I think there's a line with Annie at the end of the episode where she's joking about how she should have seen it coming, that I think it's something about the
I should have been able to tell the intel came from Sage.
Yeah, something about the intel, and I think it's almost like the writers are taking a poke at themselves. Some will call it lazy writing, to have your smartest characters just sort of fall back on the excuse of, oh, I thought of that, I knew that was coming. I think my biggest sort of more about the smartest woman alive. I really liked how she does let polarity go. That whole sort of the story parks a bit, and we have that scene with Noir and polarity where he's like fanboying. I think that's like one of my favorite parts of this episode. Sorry to like completely jump and change the subject, but I mean it's before she lets him go. But I just think Noir 2.0 is hilarious, and seeing him sort of the what is he talking about, some Area 51 film, and he's just you're meant to be there keeping someone hostage, and he's just literally just geeking out, which was great. Sorry to completely just change the subject, but I thought
Change it all. Change it to wherever you take. That's the beauty of one
I
of these
could not
podcasts.
talk about this episode and ignore my favorite scene.
I always kind of have like a chronological rundown just in case we ever get lost. There's always something to refer back to. But in my opinion, the best podcasts are always just where you go wherever your mind takes you. Like if you have a thought that comes up naturally, like let's dive into that next. And honestly, the next thing that popped into my head when I said that is I needed to give a take that to my often co-host Damon Gray, who was watching. And Damon is always like, he loves this universe, but the extra chaotic nature of certain of the scenes can be a bit much for him. And he was talking about how what is with this bondage baby and this character that people always come out of his asshole? Why do you always show me that there's people going in and out of this man's asshole? I don't need to see that. Well, this man's asshole ended up becoming very, very important because it's used as a twist reveal. We bring out the team. All of our favorite fighters, Jordan, Sam, and the whole crew, come out of this man's asshole. And they kick Godolkin's ass in the action sequence. I thought that was a hilarious way to call back to the silly little bit, all while actually working with the plot and giving us a pretty fun action sequence. It didn't last long, but it was like a fun ramp up for the finale, I thought. What did you think, Lauren? It can be of the asshole black hole nature or of the action sequence, your call.
Well, I do agree. I think that was like such a twist on a character who could have meant absolutely nothing, and I loved that he like actually ended up playing a huge part, and they did the Trojan horse thing, and it was like squeamish to watch, but at the same time that's the boys, that's what you sign up for, and it was very much in that vein. So I thought it was a great twist on the fight sequence, and that whole thing itself, like that was like the big climactic moment of them all coming in and getting into a fight with I guess Godolkin and the people he was controlling. It did feel a little bit messy as a set piece. I think in terms of sort of like you have all these characters coming in, and we'd already seen, I think in a previous episode, Godolkin controlling the group against each other. So I suppose they didn't want to do that a second time, and they just had us invested in these like average students, and that's how he was doing it to them. And at the same time, this was kind of the explanation for why he couldn't control Marie, right? He had to raise his powers to a level that he could do that, which is why he was controlling all these students and trying to train himself the way he'd been training Marie to be her best self the entire season. So that did play, I think. But in terms of it being like a big climactic fight scene, like we've seen better, which is why I think when it led to that point of Marie just sort of snapping and exploding his head, it did feel like, okay, we could have led up to that a little bit, ramped up to that a bit better, I think.
I mean, if we thought as viewers that the set piece was messy, imagine how messy the people coming out of the butthole felt. Josh, what were your thoughts about the action sequence? Whole squad going up against Godolkin.
Yeah, from the black hole. It's like the end game portal scene. Yeah, literally. It's pretty lackluster fight. As great it is seeing these sort of underdog soups with their very different powers being used to sort of defeat the big bad is a great tool for showcasing the sort of gimmicks that we've seen unfold this season. I think, like Lauren said, it sort of God, it doesn't feel earned with how Godolkin ends. But I think there are still moments in that what is it, like a training room, compound room? I can't remember what they refer it to, but
Yeah, it's basically his version of the Danger Room from X-Men.
I think it just all feels very samey. We have the first group of students fighting, and then obviously Marie comes in and they start fighting her. It could have done with a bit more pizzazz for a Broadway actor to force them to dance at one point, which I think was great to have later sort of stage side show. I think it could have done with a better venue for that final showdown because it just felt very samey to everything we've seen. And obviously it's meant to mirror Marie's training throughout the season and becoming this final evolved version that we spoke about before. But I just think it could have been done, it could have been executed a lot better. I think they were very limited by keeping it in the training room. Personally, if you want this sort of big explosive, not if you ignore the pun, explosive finale, I think they could have done something a bit grander. But yeah.
You're saying you think the fight sequence was the shits?
with the
too many butt puns that are available, but I want to talk about the final sequence of this episode that really does set up season 5 of The Boys. I captioned it in the rundown, Viva la Revolucion, because that's what it reminded me of, Leo in One Battle After Another. That was my favorite line when he just belts that one out after out of nowhere. Don't worry, that's not Jam. I know you haven't seen it yet. That's not spoiling anything because it will still catch you so off guard when it happens. It's absolutely hilarious. But our team, the Guardians, finally join the Resistance, right? Annie is there, Starlight is there. We get the lights flickering and kind of gives you that, ooh, it's happening. And then A-Train zooms in out of nowhere and kind of solidifies the excitement. Lauren, the A-Train moment, I feel like was really what made my goosebumps kind of start. The hairs raised on my arms, and I went, okay, it's time. It's going down in the final season of The Boys.
Yeah, I think I was similar. I was expecting for someone to appear. I was hoping that it wouldn't be Homelander because they were kind of teasing that he was on the phone. I was like, if this is going to be another finale where Homelander arrives to just like blow shit up, I'm going to be annoyed, which they refrained from doing. So I appreciated that. I will say this sort of arrival of Starlight and A-Train being like, welcome to the revolution, kids, was incredibly corny. And I wish it had been pulled off a little bit better. But the prospect of what it sets up is very exciting. So I have no qualms with the way that the plot went. I just have qualms with the way that they said it. But I think it was, if they were going to have a big pop at the end, it was that return of A-Train, because we sort of didn't really know where he was going, if he was going to be back at all in season 5. It was kind of, it's like a Queen Maeve situation where it's like he could have gone off and started another life and we don't see him again. But this definitely set up that he is going to be a character in season 5 of The Boys, and that potentially quite a few of these characters will now be set up for season 5 as well.
My theory for season 5, and I think, Jam, that you who put the idea of Marie saving Butcher in my head, of like Marie, he's got this illness from the temporary V. Marie is going to heal his ailments in the final season. This is how the whole thing is going to play out. She's coming back to the squad, right? She is going to heal him. He's going to want to become a soup again so he can fight Homelander. They're going to convince him not to, so him and Huey, they can live their healthy lives as regular humans. Marie is going to Avatar Aang to Firelord Ozai, take his bending away, take Homelander's power. She is going to suck all the Compound V out of Homelander's blood, and take away his power. And then Butcher is going to beat the shit out of him as he's just laying there as a regular guy. And season 5, Homelander is done. Josh, what did you think of the conclusion? If you have any theories for where this will play into The Boys, feel free to lead into that.
I don't have any theories, but I completely forgot that A-Train was a potential sort of cameo appearance at the end. When obviously Starlight's talking about, it took me 30 minutes, she speaks about the radius of the location. I think, she's teasing, is someone bad on the way? Someone from Vought gonna come find them, come chasing them? And then A-Train shows up, and it's literally like the absolute cinema meme. I was like, I absolutely love A-Train, the sort of face turn that he did, his sort of turn to the good side is one of my favorite things that they've done with his character, just with any character in the Boys. And I think he's a great asset to the Starlighters. So I was delighted to see him show up. Quite a corny scene. I think it's very sort of silly, almost sort of mid-credit scene humor. It doesn't take it seriously as sort of, right, we're a team now with a we're gonna save the world. It was more sort of very a light-hearted end of the season, and for quite a dark.
It was giving. We've made the CW comparison, but it was giving a little bit of like Green Arrow, The Flash, and Supergirl showing up to somebody at the end of the season and going, "You're joining the team now." Like that's very much what it felt like.
Welcome to the CW. But no, I'm delighted that A-Train's back. I think those first few episodes where we are reuniting the Boys, and based on where we last saw various members in the season 4 finale, it'd be very exciting to see how this team reunites with the Guardians by their side now. So there's so much they can do in this final season, which has me just ecstatic. And just to jump back, I think when we talk about Gen V season 2 as like the Boys 4.5, they executed what I think Star Wars really wanted the Book of Boba Fett to do for Mandalorian season 3, but they've done it sort of 10 times better. They've managed to tell this own enveloped story from beginning to end, but also prioritize the focus for setting up what's next. And whilst some people will argue there's been a lot of setup this season, there has still been that self-contained story that the Book of Boba Fett wishes it did, leading up to the Mandalorian season 3, I think. So it's been a great season.
Will Gen V get a season 3? Should Gen V get a season 3? And what story could you possibly tell, assuming Homelander loses and he dies, is depowered, whatever, at the end of the final season of The Boys? Eric Kripke, the creator, and like the whole creative team has talked about, like, if viewership is high enough, we have a story we can tell, and that will determine a season 3. Like, we can do more Gen V, like we got more in the tank if there is the demand for it. So watch the show and there will be. If not, there won't be. My kind of I'll give my theory, my pitch kind of last, but Jam, what do you think? Should there be? Will there be? And do you have any ideas as to where they could go from there?
Honestly, the only thing I think I could see them doing is a whole refresh. I would love to see them, not maybe this cast, but just kids back in college and start the whole like college thing over. Like maybe focus a lot more on that. Because I did, to Lauren's point, I really liked season 1 a lot. Like that was what made this show so high up for me, the series overall so high up for me. So I would love to see that. That's really like my only theory. But I did want to highlight really quickly with the finale, A-Train coming back. Something that I really loved about that, as corny as the whole scene with Starlight, that whole scene, you guys are right. It was cringy. It was kind of corny, very CW-ish. But there's one thing I really loved about A-Train coming back. It's his what he says. He's like, yo, are y'all gonna hurry up? Like, And the reason why I like that for two reasons, because it plays onto his superpower, right? It plays onto the fact of he's a speedster and things like that. But that's also a very, as a mixed black person, that's very a black thing to do. Like, yo, y'all gonna come up like, what we doing? We standing in the middle of the street. So I love that little nuance so much. It was great. So I wanted to highlight that really quickly. But overall, my only theory was
Also like a little Flash-esque of like, can we hurry up? You guys are taking a long time. Can we get things going a little bit?
that's what I'm saying. Like it's like a super speedster thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it plays on his power. But overall, my only theory was that one that I shot to you was that I just think Marie is gonna heal Butcher. That's the only thing I got. But once you said that, and then she'll bloodbend like the compound, I was like, oh, put him. That's genius. Absolute cinema. I need it.
Lauren, do you think the show should get another season? Do you want it to? And do you have any ideas as to where they could go?
I think if you'd asked me sort of like before this finale, I would have been like, absolutely. I can sort of see how they could repeat this ongoing. But because this season has been so focused on this big overall narrative that is playing into the boys, I find it hard to figure out how they can go forward and kind of go back to that, what season 1 was. The only thing, so in that way, I'm not sure it needs a season 3, but I think one way I could see it going forward is kind of like Jan was saying, where it is a bit of a refresh, and perhaps it's, if it's the same characters, I could see them moving forward in a way that's like, okay, depending on how The Boys season 5 ends, maybe Homelander's abolished. We need a new generation of superheroes to step up and be the 7. And this is, where are we going to find them at Godolkin University? Like perhaps it's like a refresh of trying to get back to core superhero values. And then you'll have people who are still like the Homelander sticklers who are threatening that and wanting to still bring in like I think the setup of the anti-soup agenda is something that's like can continue to be explored beyond whatever happens with Homelander. So I think that's a way that they could potentially do it. But if it is, it really depends really what happens with the end of The Boys, doesn't it?
So I kind of want to piggyback, and Josh, I'm sorry that I'm going before you now, because this what something Lauren said just like fits so perfectly into the idea I was thinking of, and so I want to piggyback off of it. And that's, I do think there's going to be somebody that is going, Homelander is gone, we need the new generation of soups, like we need to put the new 7 together. And I think it's going to be the villain of Gen V season 3, who is somebody that we already saw in this season. It's going to be Stan Edgar. It's going to be Giancarlo Esposito, because I don't think he's actually going to play a huge role in the final season of The Boys. I think he was dropped into this season to introduce Gen V watchers to Stan Edgar so that we can see him as the villain in the final season. We know he wants to reclaim Vought. I don't think they're going to be going to him as the guy to take down Homelander. Maybe he joins up with the team, but ultimately he wants to bring Vought back together. And at this point in the story, he still has a good relationship with Marie and all the kids that he met so far. He's on good terms with them. And so I think we see him trying to put Vought and the 7 back together so he can control soups. Marie is going to join up with him because she doesn't have any reason not to at this point. And we're going to see Marie go down a bit of a bad path until hopefully she eventually gets pulled out of it at the end. And I think that could play into, we saw Jordan and Marie broke up this episode, and Jordan said, like, I still want to be friends with you. I will support you no matter what, but like, I can't do a relationship with this whole hero thing. Like, I want to keep you safe. I want to be a partner, and you got to go be the hero. That doesn't work for me. I think that is foreshadowing to it. She wants to go be the hero, and Jordan sees like, this isn't the way. This Stan Edgar guy, something is off, and Jordan's going to have to try and pull Marie back to the light a little bit. I think that's kind of my Gen V season 3 prediction, if there will be one. What do you think, Josh?
Again, to piggyback, I think how this season ends, I would be completely satisfied without a follow-up season. I think you would have to, now that we've seen our characters sort of merge into the boys, and we don't know how much they're going to appear. Obviously, we had Sam and Kate sort of crossover in the boys season 4, and that was a fairly minimal crossover. I think it will be a bit more significant this time around. I think you don't return to Gen V in the sort of college style, as you said, unless you are reviving it. You are maybe looking at how, again, based on the events of this season, how is that college going to change as a result of the events that happen? A number of students dead, the founder dead. I think the anti-soups things, the anti-human things as well that were going on at the sort of start of the season. You either sort of make the college the focus, or you make this core group of characters the focus again, if you want to try and envision them as the new Seven, or envision them as a new sort of branch of the boys going after rogue evil soups in the aftermath of Homelander's demise. I think there's a lot of potential for what you can do, but I would be fine without a Gen V season 3, based on, if we are to assume that, let's say they go the Star Wars route again to name drop it, and they say this is the end of their version of the Skywalker saga, and Thought Rising is basically a new sort of way for them to give it the Star Wars treatment, where rather than going forward in time, we start to go a bit further back and fill in those gaps, maybe. But I'm all for Ethan Slater coming back in Thought Rising. I'm very content with that theory, and I'd love to see it, because I think there's so much they can do with the character of Godolkin still. There's so much.
If you want to see another season of Gen V, let us know. If you're watching us live, let us know in the YouTube chat. If not, let us know in the comments or on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. And of course, you can also make sure you're following us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a nice 5-star rating on Spotify, on Apple. If it's on Apple, leave a nice little review too. If you haven't done a review yet, go out there and write a nice little review, because it makes Apple go, oh shit, people like them. Let's bump them up. And then we help them grow this community a ton. So in addition to hitting the like button on YouTube, which we encourage everyone to do, help us grow the community, battle that algorithm. Let's battle the algorithm everywhere, not just YouTube. We got to take down all the algorithms. And you can do it by leaving us a nice 5-star rating and review. Lauren, where can the people find you on socials? Where can they find your podcast? Where can they find your work?
Yeah, everyone can find me at LRouse19. That's Rouse spelt as in house, mainly on Twitter and Blue Sky and TikTok. I was recently at New York Comic Con, and so I have a ton of coverage being posted on my socials about that, and on thedirect.com. I have a few interviews going up, like TJ, you teed at the beginning that you guys have a Welcome to Derry review up on your site. We also did some interviews for that at New York Comic Con, and that's live on the Direct right now, so you can head over there and check that out. And then my podcast, Controller Club, that I host with Kleinfeld, who I believe has been a guest here before, and Tom Drew, who I'm sure will be a guest here in the future. We're on socials at controller_club as well.
Josh Martin Jones, where can the people find you personally, and where can they find this wonderful little outlet called Pop News?
You can find me on most social medias, mainly Twitter, X, sorry. Still,
no, it's
old
Twitter.
Old habits never die. Josh M_Jones on Instagram and X. TikTok is josh.mj. And obviously you can find Pop News on the website, popnews.com, or our X and Instagram pages, popped_news. Just all things pop culture, film, TV. We've just had a review for it, dropped today as well, for Welcome to Derry. So there's at least something to check out today.
Heck yeah, make sure you go over and check out Pop News as well. Jam, where can people find you on socials? Where can they find your content?
Yeah, I am Jam Session on all socials. Just replace the E in session with an X. Pretty simple, I think. I was just like Lauren at New York Comic Con, so I got a lot of New York Comic Con content. I'm mainly the fan experience. I'm dropping a podcast episode about my fan experience with some friends on the Jam Pod, which is on YouTube, but you can also find me at Jam Session on YouTube as well. So that's pretty much what I got going on lately. Podcast episode for the fan experience, and you could catch some of my articles on the alternate timeline, previous work, and my latest work, On Agents of Fandom, I have my My Hero Academia episode 160, which is the first episode of the final season, up now. We are currently on episode 3 right now, so it's been a great season. You can check out my work there as well.
Upcoming here on the Agents of Fandom podcast, we have Star Wars Visions, The Witcher, Stranger Things, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Wonder Man, in addition to movies like Avatar, Fire and Ash, The Running Man, and more. We're going to have a gap with some time in November, so we're going to do some fun drafts. We're going to bring some friends on, play some games, things like that. Stay tuned. There is also one major superhero-related TV show that I've never watched before that I'm told is absolutely incredible. And so I'm thinking maybe we could do a little bit of a rewatch or / for me, first time watch breakdown here on the podcast. But I kind of want to keep it as a surprise for now. So stay tuned for that. Hit the notification bell. Make sure you are subscribed. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today, either live or after the fact. Hit that like button on your way out. On behalf of myself, Jam, Josh, and Lauren, we will see you next time. Peace.